just good blocking? Was that moan from joy or mocking? The towel stayed on, but the tension was thick. Was it sexy or just a camera trick? From kisses to caresses, we're breaking down the yeses. Faking it with Ariel and Morgan.
Hi, I'm Ariel Lee Cohen,
Hey, I'm Morgan Smith.
and we are the hosts of Faking It with Ariel and Morgan.
We're two intimacy coordinators here to talk about the spicy scenes you see in film and TV.
Yeah! All right, well, we're going to start off with Hot Off the Set, where we share recent on-set stories with all identifying details such as names, places, and project titles changed for privacy, as it should be. Then after that, in scene work, we'll watch an intimacy scene in real time and rate it using our spice scale, scoring it across 3 key categories and giving it a final letter grade. We'll have notes and links in our captions in case you want to watch the scene yourself. After that, in Position to Know, we'll answer common questions we get about our work. So let's kick it off with Hot Off the Set. For the first time in a production I've worked on, the director in our initial meeting asked me, what is the definition of softcore porn?
Ooh.
Yeah, because in relation to the project we were doing, she said, I am worried that this is going to get flagged as softcore porn, but I also am not certain what softcore porn means in the context of a narrative film. And I really thought about it and I did a little bit of research, but in the moment, even the definition of hardcore porn or any kind of pornography, legally, it's something along the lines of, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I see it. It's
Yes.
that vague.
Thank you, Nixon.
Yeah, right? So when it comes to softcore versus hardcore porn, my real only distinction is that hardcore porn involves active insertion into the body or some level of touch to genitalia or mouth to genitalia touch. In softcore pornography, it feels like the focus is more on maybe hiding the genitalia, but still the focus is on the simulated or real sex scene itself more so than the plot line or the story that surrounds it, versus hardcore pornography, it's way more focused on the physical activity. I think that softcore pornography is trying to bridge that gap between narrative and hardcore pornography. So this project in particular was based off of a book talk book. So they got the rights to this book talk book, and they are now making it a vertical drama, one of those micro dramas you may have seen on TikTok and otherwise. And there's quite a lot of simulated sex. And the director was just wondering, is this softcore porn? And to her, I basically said, maybe. We are following SAG protocols and guidelines, and there is no touch to the genitals in any capacity, and all sex is simulated, including oral, manual, and penetrative in this situation. But I would say maybe. What are your thoughts?
See, it's tough because ultimately the lines that we draw between these different types of media are a bit arbitrary. And I know at least in the US, and anything that's a SAG production, there is no actual penetration between the actors. It's all simulated. In other countries, that might be different. They have different rules. It kind of reminds me of Parks and Rec, where they ask a porn star, it's like, how do you define pornography? And she just goes, for me, it's when the penis goes in.
Yeah, I remember that.
I love. Gorgeous. I really liked your definition for softcore versus hardcore. Verticals, micro episodes, whatever you want to call them, definitely push up against that line, if not cross it. So I think it's a very fair question for the director to ask. And I happened to work a day on this project that you were talking about because I was covering for you. And I'm like,
Yes, you worked on it too.
I did. No, you're fine. Like, it was mainly your thing and I was helping out. But I fully get why she asked that question, because there were definitely parts of the script when I was reading it when I was like, this is like dancing around that line for sure.
Does that count as your hot off the set as well?
Yes. We can count it as that, actually. I love that.
Next, we're moving into scene work. I brought something in today. Morgan, have you seen Lie With Me?
I have not.
Excellent. So, Lie With Me is a film from 2005. Lee Smith as Layla and Eric Balfour as David, directed by Clement Virgo. There was no intimacy coordinator because there were no intimacy coordinators in 2005. There's a lot I want to talk about with this scene, so I'm not going to give you any information regarding the creation of the scene, but I'll
Okay.
give you a little bit of context. So, by this point in Lie With Me, Layla and David have already crossed paths a few times. They've shared eye contact in a park while having simulated sex with other partners and
Ooh.
watching each other at a party. They've traded charged small talk that's sort of half flirt, half challenge. At this point, she goes to his apartment, and after a few teasing lines about wanting to, quote, see what he's like, she initiates some intimacy that quickly escalates.
Oh, boy.
But I had to
You're right.
literally go to a porn website to find this, by the way. Like, this
I
film
noticed
is
that in the
nowhere.
link. So they're like nuzzling. He's standing behind her while she is sitting backwards on a couch, bent over. His hand is going up and down her thigh in some very early aughts skirt.
The outfits are very...
The outfits are amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so now he's kissing her on her neck. His hand went on her thigh again. Oh, there's another couch.
Listen, there's a lot of beds, couches, and otherwise here.
Okay. Okay, now his pants are getting yanked down, which is simulating oral sex for sure.
So she's mostly blocking with her hair, which is great. We love to see it.
Oh, we see a penis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh.
She's not anymore.
Now they're on the floor.
Mm-hmm. And we're
Great.
in lingerie, and we are in basically full frontal nudity because
Yeah.
her top is very sheer.
Yep. And he's taking her panties off, putting a condom on. Look at that. Safe
And
sex.
We love the condom. We love a condom. We love any kind
Love
of
it.
lubricant. Even
Yes.
it's small, but it's there. It just is authentic.
It's there. Simulated sex is happening. I love a hand clutching a shoulder. Great shot and profile of the simulated sex. You can see their pelvises right next to each other. Now he's on her chest. Nope, now she's getting on top. Big wide shot over them at this really interesting angle. And I guess they climax at the same time.
Which is very real, and that is a thing that happens to people who just started dating.
Yeah, all the time.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to mention now that the sex here is not simulated.
Oh,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So there was actually like a lot of issues with this. In a TIFF Time interview, the director has consistently dodged the did they or didn't they question by stressing emotional realism over anatomical play-by-play and deflects with, quote, if it felt real, looked real, it's emotionally real. He also framed arousal as a valid cinematic emotion and pushed back on the art versus porn binary. And he positioned the choice as boundary pushing and artistic rather than a stunt. But all contemporary write-ups and program notes and later summaries describe the movie as containing graphic, unsimulated sexual content. As far as the performer, Lauren Lee Smith has said that the role scared her at first, and she honestly thought that it was a joke when they told her that it was real. But she took it because the film was about a sexually forthright woman, and she wanted to commit fully, emphasizing that the nudity and sex was in service of a character and not gratuity. So, and these are a few different collected interview excerpts and trade blurbs. But now that you know that, is the scene still good? How are you feeling about it now?
Oh, yeah, the scene is still good. Like, for me, it doesn't take anything away from what I was enjoying about the scene. And it felt real, not just because there was actual penetration happening between the actors. It felt real because we were seeing it from the first kiss. It felt like pretty much all the way through. There wasn't a lot of cuts to what was happening. We were seeing angles that weren't always like the prettiest angle, but they were interesting. Even if this had been simulated and they had choreographed it to go just like this, it would have the same effect for me. There was just a couple of shots where I was like, she seems to be right on the mark, because usually they're like off by an inch or two, or there's room for there to be a barrier or modesty garment. And I was like, wow, I really can't see the modesty garment. She's right on top of him.
If this were a simulated scene, this would be one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen as far
Yeah.
as faking sex, which is why when I watched it, I was like, damn, like they're getting some beautiful angles and they're moving around and shuffling and switching positions,
Mhm.
and it is still flawless. Like, how many takes must
Yeah.
this have taken? The answer is not that many. Do you want to watch it again now, understanding what's happening? But
Sure. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So she is actually having her hand on his penis. I
Got
believe
it.
that they did simulate her mouth on the penis because her head is slightly too high.
It's not, yeah. It seems like she's pushing his genitalia closer to her chest when she goes down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how long this took to shoot. Probably not many takes, because they're not professional porn actors, so they're not used to doing multiple takes of actual sex over and over again, which is challenging in its own way.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm really glad there was a condom.
Yeah, right? Yeah. The real
I'm like,
authenticity of the moment.
the real actual condom. I'm so glad that was written in. They had it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
great. This is the part where I'm like, he's there. Like, there's,
Yeah.
if there was masking, it was incredible masking, because he is not off the target at all.
Mm-hmm.
We are in profile. We are seeing skin. I'm like, there is no room for error there.
We see also the connection there between genitalia and
Yes.
her pelvis. So, yeah, I think that again, this could have been managed simulated.
Totally.
I don't think that it's more raw or more interesting or more erotic because they had actual sex.
I agree with that point. Did they really feel like they needed it to be actual sex to get that performance? I tend to rest on the side of trust actors to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
We don't actually have to smack somebody in the face to get a reaction of what it's like to smack them in the face. And audiences would have registered it the same way. So to me, it feels a bit more like a marketing ploy than something that was necessary to do to film the scene.
But if it were a marketing ploy, then why did the director deny it?
Oh, yeah, he denied it. Then I don't know. I forgot he denied it.
Yeah, I think that the director had like a really specific vision for this.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. But there are physical risks to having literal sex with another human being. There's also emotional risks with that. There's emotional risks and physical risks with having simulated sex as well, but not to the same degree, particularly when you have an intimacy coordinator in the space who can coordinate that moment and make sure that it's done safely. I know that the lead actress and lead actor both consented to the work, and I'm not ignoring the validity of that, but I do think it was unnecessary. In bringing back the conversation about softcore porn, I would say this is softcore porn.
Yeah, I see that. It's funny because I feel like people ask me all the time as an intimacy coordinator if any of the sex that we see in mainstream movies is real. And I feel like there's this idea that that's easy to do. And I'm like, doing a simulated sex scene is already weird enough. Like you're pretending to have sex in front of 100 coworkers and your boss and your boss's boss. That already is so weird. Then to put in like, this is actual sex. They also don't have the experience of like, what do I have to do physically to allow myself to actually have sex take after take after take? Because we're here at this location today. We don't shoot this once today and then come back to it tomorrow. Like this is it. Maybe if you had cast porn actors, then that could make sense because they know how to pull this off. Yeah, and then all the risks on top of it.
Yeah. And condoms break as well. This is no shame or shade on any sex worker in any capacity. It is
Totally.
a living and live your life. I really do go back to what you said, which is trust your actors to act and be able to do the work without it actually endangering anyone. Which is why you have stunt coordinators and which is why you have intimacy coordinators to begin with. It's like CGI, okay? CGI is there so that the actors don't need to actually travel to another planet in order to make something look real. And I think it's the same thing with simulated versus unsimulated sex. We can make it look like they're not having it. So why do it? Why endanger folks in that way for erotic needs? I just don't think it's necessary. Thousands and thousands of films have done it in the past perfectly well.
There are porn sites dedicated to simulated sex scenes that people find so arousing that that's the porn that they watch. So it can be just as erotic.
If not
The
more
other
so.
thing I keep going back to is the actress saying she thought they were kidding. I feel like with all the power dynamics between an actor and director, it's really hard for me to imagine a world where an actor can reasonably consent to doing this type of scene. I'm sure there are actors who can, and they have great relationships with actors, but at the end of the day, the director is your boss. They are deciding whether or not you get this job. These two actors at this point in their careers, like they are names, but they're not big. So they're not in a position where they necessarily could feel like they could say no, especially after they were already cast and you already have the idea of like, okay, I'm on this job. Now I have to, actors already get the message of like, give everything to the role, give yourself to the role, like put everything else aside, give your body over.
These roles have lines beyond these simulated sex scenes, and they are coworkers in this moment, in general, as people. They have now slept together, which does complicate things in the workplace. It leaves you in a state of being very vulnerable. After this unsimulated sex scene, they have to then go into scenes that require a lot of emotional upheaval. And it is even harder to separate yourself from the role if you have actually had sex with your co-star or your coworker and then have to tell them information that seems to come from your own body. I think that that can be really confusing.
Obviously, there are co-stars that hook up,
Yeah, that happens.
come into relationships, already in a relationship when they go into the project. The other thing I keep thinking about is the crew. I'm like, did the whole crew know that they were doing an actual sex scene?
Usually crew does not know what's going on. I mean, they've read the script for like in a general sense, but they're really just being told day of what the plan is in some capacity, unless you're like the DP or the director, or the actors. So you could just come to work and suddenly it's like, oh, there is a full simulated sexual assault scene. And you are like, great, I guess I will just have a problem with that. And if I do have a problem with it and don't want to work that day, guess I'm not getting paid. So that's why one of the things we do as intimacy coordinators is we hold safety meetings on set the day we're there to explain what the parameters of the work we're going to do are today, as well as what the actors will be wearing as far as barriers or modesty garments. But I have no idea what the crew knew or didn't know. I don't know how closed the set was. I would hope that they would super close it, but I don't know.
If this became like a thing in the industry where people just like had actual sex scenes, then I think of the actors that are like just starting out and trying to break in and the pressure they feel to do that stuff like very early on in their career, which may be the thing that they're going in to do. Cool. But if you also have the added pressure of like, and I'm actually going to need to have sex with my co-star, it just feels like a lot.
It does feel like a lot.
It's also just so funny that it's like, this is called faking it, but we watched a real sex scene.
I know, but it's kind of interesting. I think it brings into question a lot of the work we're doing
Mhm.
and how we would handle this instead.
Yeah.
If this were, let's say they were like, we're planning on an unsimulated sex scene. How would we approach this from the get-go?
I haven't worked on a project where there was actual sex on it. I've only faked it.
Faking it.
But I feel like the first thing I would do is I would get very clear on what's behind the decision to make it real and how are we shooting this? How much time are we allotting to shoot this? And getting into like logistical stuff, especially this one, which I feel like there's like 3 cuts in the whole thing. If we're doing actual sex with actors who I'm imagining haven't had experience doing that before, that's going to make rehearsal a lot more important. Rehearsal without penetration so that we can make sure that we get it right. I was trying really hard not to say nail it. The first few times and then conversations with the actors and being like, hey, so this is the request. This is the reasoning behind the request. How is that sitting with you? How do you feel about that? If I come out of those conversations feeling really good about the actor saying yes to that, then I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's do it. I actually would probably reach out to intimacy coordinators I know who've choreographed actual sex to get information from them. I'm like, all right, what do you need? What do I need to have? Do I need to have lube on site? Are there other things that I normally wouldn't be thinking about with my job that I would need to do? So that would be my approach.
I would push back a lot on
Mhm.
the unsimulated sex element. I would really require a lot of the director and production team to explain to me why this is necessary and recommending that the actors, if I decide to stay on, say, this is the information I have been given by the production and director team, and really looking at their body language and making sure this is going to work
Totally.
for them. Exactly as you said, if you're feeling good, you move forward, but it's against SAG guidelines to touch genitalia in any capacity for any narrative film, or else it is considered pornography. It cannot be union. This was obviously a non union film. I just think it sets a bad precedent for what people in power should be requesting of their actors. Everyone deserves a safe space, including folks who work in the porn industry. They don't really use intimacy coordinators, although there are some who work in that space. They use more like consent specialists who handle more contracts and legalese as far as their boundaries go. So it's a little different.
The way people write about a scene can tell you a lot about how the production is going to be
Mhm.
and how it's going to be treated on set. It is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move into the spice scale.
Welcome to the Spice Scale, a not so scientific way of rating intimacy scenes based on consent and power dynamics, technical craft and coordination excellence, and heat factor. Each category gets a score from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest. Then we add it all up to give the scene a final letter grade.
So, leaving behind the simulated versus unsimulated argument, let's look at the scene itself. How does the scene depict consent and power in the story, if known or behind the scenes? So let's leave behind the scenes behind because we've talked quite a bit about that. So let's just talk about consent and power in this story.
Does feel like they're playing with power dynamics in a really interesting way in the scene, in that at first he's the one who's initiating a lot more of the action. She's up against the couch and then they switch. I mean, literally the way their bodies move, her teasing him while holding his genitalia and talking about his girlfriend is definitely a power move. So that kind of stuff I thought was really interesting and fun. In terms of consent, it felt like a consensual scene. There wasn't a ton of moments of checking in that I can remember just from those couple of watches. But there also was like a lot of building up to what was happening. So I felt like there was space for someone to slow things down, change direction, or whatever. So,
It seemed to
yeah.
me that they were both pretty equal in power. I have
Yeah.
seen the film, and the whole film is really just about sexual power, who has
Right.
it. And there's a lot of teasing. And once we get past the teasing, there's a lot of possessive feelings and ownership feelings. It does seem pretty equitable,
Yeah.
as far as power, and it is consensual on both parts. So I mean, 5 for me.
Yeah. I would give it a 5. I think it depicts both in a very authentic but interesting way. Then we have technical craft slash coordination excellence. This includes the staging, the film coverage, modesty protection, which there was none of here,
There was none.
choreography, which probably also was none here, and overall execution of this scene. The film coverage of this, I really enjoyed. It felt like I was there with them.
Mm.
They had some interesting angles. It didn't feel like I was just straight watching it from a wide. Like they would find ways to like just turn the camera a little bit or make it a little bit more of an angle. So it was really enjoyable to watch without losing the realness of the scene. I thought that was good. I would imagine they had some conversation about just blocking so that camera knew where it needed to move.
The coverage is really good. It does feel very authentic and realistic, i.e., the condom, which I'd love to bring up again.
Love it.
Really, really well done. The
Mhm.
choreography makes sense. They could have made this much more gratuitous if they wanted
That's
to.
true. That's a
You
very good
know,
point.
they could have been right down the barrel. They could have lifted her skirt, but
Mhm.
really, it's pretty artfully covered
Yeah.
for the most part. And I thought that that was really well done. I think even being separated from watching the rest of the film right now, I understood the dynamics. I understood where they were in their emotional, physical process, and
Mhm.
the storytelling was well done.
Yeah.
Although I wish there were modesty protection and barriers, but that's fine.
And there could have been.
And there could have been,
There
and it
was
would
room
have been
for
no
it.
different. It would have been the same, but I'm
Would have
fine and
been.
I'm not yelling and I'm okay.
I was going to say 5.
Okay. I want to give it a 5 because it's great, but coordination excellence, it is not. I'm going to give it a 4.5. I literally physically cannot give it a 5. I can't do it. I'm
Just
giving
on
it
principle. Just
but
on principle.
on the principle of the thing, on
Yeah.
behalf of SAG-AFTRA, I cannot. All right, let's move on to heat factor, the level of erotic charge or sexual tension in the scene.
Woo. Yeah,
Hot.
that was a 5.
That is
That
a
was a 5 for
5,
me.
5 on fire.
I loved it. I loved it. I liked they were focusing on different parts of the body at different moments in the scene, parts of the body that you don't often see a lot of emphasis on, which was really nice. Liked that they both had this built up energy towards pursuing this. Not quite animalistic, but just very visceral. There was something very visceral about the scene that I really enjoyed. I loved the power dynamics of her teasing him while she was holding onto his genitalia. I thought that was really cool and also gave me a little insight into what was going on outside of this scene. I liked that they kept switching who was on top. That kept it very dynamic and fun. The only thing I would quibble with is them climaxing at the same time. I'm like, I
Yeah,
wonder if that was
I
simulated.
think it had to be. Because otherwise, it also was very short. And they did orgasm at the same time, so that felt very planned.
Yeah.
As far as timing, the sexiest part of the entire scene is when he's feeling her thigh in the very beginning. But
Oh,
when
it's
he's
great.
when he's lifting the thigh just a little bit and he puts pressure in the fingertips as he's breathing on the back of her neck, I'm like, oh, that's gorgeous. I love it. Look, that
Yeah.
for me is tops. That's tops. The filming of it was good. It was executed well. It was very attractive to look at. But that thigh moment, baby.
That for me was one of the most erotic moments of the scene. And there's a lot of emphasis put on the actual moment of penetration. Or there are things about tension that give off so much more eroticism than other moments. And the climaxing looking back, I'm like, it didn't feel like they were actually climaxing. It just felt like they were performing. They kind of pushed it. Like she was speeding up her breath. They had those moments. Her body's over his. and they ended, I think it would have been different if they had been able to simulate it.
I 100% agree. And I was thinking that when we were watching it, but then I forgot. So I'm so glad you brought it up. Yeah, that it's like the orgasm moment was not clear. They just kind of stopped at the same time.
Yes.
So it felt
Yes.
like I could hear the director of the film in my head going, and stop. Like, and orgasm.
Yes.
Like,
Yes. There's a difference between ending and stopping. And this just felt like it stopped.
if we were handling the scene, I mean, like, I would have personally maybe a little either an upward motion of his hips sort of bucking her up a little bit, or maybe he crunches his abdominal muscles for a moment, or a guttural sound on
Mm-hmm.
either her or his part. Maybe she lifts her head and it whips back while her chest
Mm-hmm.
arches. Something, it doesn't even need to be that big. It can be just like a groan, but
Mm-hmm.
it needs something to close out that moment.
Totally. I also would not have been mad at some body shakes happening as we're
What
getting
if
towards the end. If we're going for something really real, like some of those less pretty movements that happen when people are climaxing, I think could have been very appropriate for this type of scene.
So should
And
we go back and downgrade technical craft to 4?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I
Going
thought
to
about it.
4.
Whatever the audience equivalent of blue balls is, I got left with a little bit of that.
So crass. I love it.
I couldn't think of a non crass way. Just, I didn't get the full catharsis.
It
Let's put it that
left you
way.
wanting.
Yeah, but not in the good way, you
I
know?
hear you. I hear you. All right, great. Okay, so we have a 5, a 4, and a 4. That
Mhm.
leaves us with 13. So that is a B, baby.
Hey.
I think we should move on to our final segment, which is
Do it.
Positioned to Know, where we'll answer common questions we get about our work. Morgan, what's a good question?
This is like the undercurrent of a lot of other questions that I will get. And that is, are you the sex police? Like, are you here to take out or diminish all the sex and nudity and other spicy things that I have in my project? And no, short answer.
No, for me, absolutely yes. I want to
Yeah.
ruin it.
Like, I always tell people, it's always so funny because I'm like, if you just think about it for a second, I'm like, first of all, that would be really bad for business.
Yeah. That'd be
What would
awful.
we do? And be like, hi, I'm getting rid of all your scenes, and now I have nothing to prep and no days on set, and our entire field is gonna disappear now. I come onto a project neutral. I don't have any skin in the game of how much or how little sex and nudity that you have in your project. For me, it always comes back to story. And the same reason why we're doing this podcast. I'm like, what story are we telling? What is the best way we can tell that story? And best way to tell that story is not just making exciting artistic choices. It's also getting people to a place where they can do their best work. And that includes actor safety and consent. It also includes clarity on what we're talking about, because there are times where I'll ask someone about a simulated sex scene and they are more visual people, so they have a hard time articulating, or they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. So they just kind of give me generic vibes, which is fine. But then we can get really clear on what's going to happen so that everybody's on the same page and everyone can bring their A game.
I love that. No
Yeah.
notes. Same answer. Great. Question I get asked a lot is what happens if the lead actor gets an erection in the film? Everyone asks this. Everyone wants.
Everyone.
So I'm here to tell you folks, first and foremost, hi. Hi, I'm going to get real close to the mic so I can tell you. It doesn't happen that much. Okay, so but it does happen. It happens on occasion because either maybe there's too much friction based on their placement between bodies. Usually I try to maintain about 4 to 5 inches away between pelvises for both actors, or if there are more, then more, at all times. But once in a blue moon, a body part moves by accident, or maybe they're just pressed too close, or maybe they're under a sheet and I can't exactly see what's going on. And sometimes there is an erection. It has only happened once in my career so far. In those situations, I first want to say that actors are wearing barriers during simulated sex scenes, which can include either a silicone or usually a foam piece of fabric that goes into their underwear or into their modesty garment, which covers their genitalia, just making sure that there's no even accidental friction between the actors. I also want to say it's really awkward to be having, as you so wonderfully put it, it's weird having, simulated sex, or I guess in this case, real unsimulated sex, in front of like 100 random people. It's a high stress situation. You're trying to remember your choreography. If there are lines, you're trying to remember your lines. It's very awkward. And then you need to remember how to fake have sex, which a lot of times just looks like push-ups in some capacity. Or you're just using your abdominal muscles, or you're using your glutes, or it's a hard movement to do take after take after take, sometimes hour after hour. If it does happen, which sometimes physiological processes occur, blood rushes to extremities. This is just a natural thing that happens. In my situation, the actor just told me, and he said, the things are happening. And I said, great. I understood what he meant somehow. We went into the next room. He told me what was going on. I said, why don't you go hang out in the bathroom for a second and decompress for a moment till it goes down. And then when we get back in the room, change up the positioning, because it turned out that they ended up a little too close to each other. And then there were no issues from there. And it can be embarrassing. I understand that. But ultimately, the mind knows it's not true, but the body doesn't know that. So the body is going to react as it reacts. And that can be as simple as, sorry, this thing is happening, scene partner. Let's just reconfigure this and then move on. Okay, great. That's all it needs to be. It doesn't have to be a whole thing.
Totally. I think it was Warren Beatty who used to tell his co-stars before a simulated sex scene, I'm sorry if I get erect and I'm sorry if I don't. Which is
Wow.
hilarious. But I think part of what that speaks to is bodies will body.
Bodies and body.
I feel like sometimes with that question, there's an implication that like there are actors out there who want to get aroused during these scenes and they want to get erect, and so much weirder than you think it is. So if it happens, it's despite their best efforts. Also, they're wearing a modesty garment with a barrier, so their scene partner might not even feel it anyway. Just imagine a sock with a piece of yoga mat in it. That's pretty close.
Yeah, and think about how enjoyable that would be.
Yeah, and how attractive you would feel.
Yes, exactly. Although not going to yuck anybody's yum. Who's to say? But it's
Sure.
not
Totally.
for the general population. Not terribly comfortable.
My kink is modesty garments.
Yay! What a fun kink! I love it. All right, cool. Do you have anything to plug?
I'll plug the independent feature Find Your Friends, premiering at TIFF. Very exciting. What you got?
I guess I'll plug How to Tame a Silver Fox. It's on Real Short. Also, The Rehearsal on HBO. That one's a fun one, and one I tragically will never be able to talk about on this podcast. But it was fun. Go check it out.
Catch Faking It every other hump day wherever you listen to podcasts.
And make sure to like, subscribe, tell your friends,
because it really does help. You can follow us on all social media at Faking It the Pod.
Join our Patreon to tell us what scenes you want us to talk about in future episodes.
Paid subscribers will get access to bonus content and more. Stay real, fakers.
Yeah! I love it! Stay real, fakers! Hell yeah. Faking It with Ariel and Morgan is produced independently by Ariel Lee Cohen and Morgan Smith, edited by Ariel, and social media and branding by Morgan. Our theme song is Faking It by Suno AI until we get monetized, so feel free to send us a new one. Have questions, thoughts, or media recommendations? Hit us up at fakingthepod.com. Find us on all socials at Faking the Pod and head over to our Patreon for bonus content. Credits for the film or show we reacted to are in the episode caption. Keep it real, fakers!